Hello and welcome to Otterwood Cottage, where we're building a brand new smallholding in the heart of the Lincolnshire countryside. I'm Emma and we're delighted to have you along with us. Okay, I've brought you out to the fruit cage today, and today's episode is all about the harsh realities of smallholding life. So two things to talk to you about today, but I'm going to show you the first one, and you can probably see it just behind me, which is one of the realities of smallholding life, or certainly one of our realities of smallholding life, if you're doing it the way we do, which is largely as weekend warriors, and even then, often very interrupted weekends. This weekend, for example, today is Sunday, yesterday, Saturday, I had to do some mum and dadmin, so both of us spent the day doing family things and ferrying to various places, picking up, dropping off, which is part of life and part of what we do, but that means a whole day not spent on the smallholding. And so the time we actually get to spend out here, although we are incredibly lucky, and a few of you have commented actually in the comments on various videos to say, how are you doing so much whilst having full-time jobs, both of you? And there's two things I think. The main one and the most important one is that we are incredibly lucky that we are, I think I've mentioned before, a multi-generational household, and so Wilkes and Mama Wilkes do a huge amount for us in the house in terms of the shopping and the cooking and keeping on top of stuff in the house. And so that allows us a significant amount of time and just headspace capacity in our minds that isn't spent thinking about what we're making for dinner or what we need to buy from the supermarket, and instead allows us to focus out here. And that is transformative in terms of how much we're able to do here compared to, for example, how much we used to be able to do on our allotment, which was much smaller scale, but we've been able to do more here than there, even though our scale's bigger, simply because we have that help and we are incredibly grateful for it. And the other thing is because of the flexibility of my working pattern. I do work in the education sector, which means that my term times are incredibly full-on, full-time plus, really busy. But then the school holiday periods mean that we do have a lot more flexibility and downtime during that time, because our members, the people I work with, are on their school holidays, and therefore the communications significantly drop off. My workload in terms of visiting and going out to see people drops off. So I'm travelling much less, and I can use those puncture points in every half-term holiday and use that for some dedicated time out here. And those holidays tend to fall at really convenient times. The May half-term was fantastic in terms of planting out time. The timing of that is perfect, and then as we get into the summer, obviously we're going to get into where it's really full on here in terms of more sowing and harvesting and keeping on top of grass and all of those things. So they are the reasons that we are able to do as much as we can do. Even with that though, the reality is that we are not spending as much time out here as we would love to, or as the place needs. So a place like this, really, you could be working on it all day, every day, and still have things to do. And so we just accept that as our reality, and that means that at times we have tasks like the one I'm about to show you now, which is that this poor fruit cage has been very sadly neglected. So since I think the last thing we probably showed you on here was us protecting it with the double layer of protection because the rabbits have been getting in and chewing everything. Since then, we really haven't been up here to do anything at all other than kind of keep half an eye to make sure that the rabbit protection is working, which it has been. And the result of that is that it is a weedy mess in here. So there is an absolute ton to pull out. But the way we kind of cope with that, or the way we think about that, is with a really positive spin. So we don't see this as, and I think I've probably mentioned this on a very early video, we don't see the weeds getting big as necessarily, you can see some behind me that are really large. We don't necessarily see that though as a massive disaster, because all of this stuff feeds the compost. And so what we choose to see it as, and perhaps it's a bit kind of self-delusional, but what we choose to see this as is an opportunity to harvest nutrients for our future compost. So yes, the weeds have got larger than most people would allow them to get, or most people would want them to get, but they're giving us more fantastic nutrition to put into the compost, and weeds, as I'm sure you know, are fantastic for composting for a multitude of reasons. There's also some positive stories in here in terms of things coming along, and I'll show you those as we go round. But for now, I'm going to start weeding, and I'm going to tell you about the second grim reality of life on a smallholding. And the second grim reality isn't one we can put a positive spin on, it's just one we have to deal with. Before I do that, just a quick look at what I mean by a weedy mess. It's probably quite hard for you to pick out what's meant to be here and what isn't, but I would say probably about 60% of what you can see here isn't meant to be here and will be coming out as I work on this morning. The difficult bit, the bit that's going to be a pain, is this stuff, the grass along the side, which is just a sod when it's growing in between the netting of the cage. But never mind, we shall figure it out. Now, I said I'd talk to you about the second harsh reality of smallholding life that we've experienced this week. And this one is definitely not one I can find a positive spin for. And that is the very sad news that we lost one of our hay-hays this week. And now, we knew, because we had done lots of research. I spent a lot of time working on and thinking about and preparing for having animals on a smallholding. It's no small commitment to decide to look after livestock, and whilst we are very new to it, obviously, and are complete novices and therefore are going to make mistakes, we're going to get things wrong. We are doing our best to be as prepared, as researched, as well read, as well thought out as we possibly can be, to make sure that we're doing the very best for the animals we have on this lot of land. And we absolutely did that with the chickens. We made sure that we had fully researched everything we need and tried to provide that for them. But the reality is that sometimes livestock just dies. And I cannot emphasize enough that if you are watching these videos and other smallholding videos with the idea that one day it might be something you'd like to do yourselves, but you're not there yet, you need to be emotionally and physically prepared for the fact that, I think the phrase is, where there is livestock, there is dead stock. And that is the reality of keeping animals, is that sometimes some of them won't make it. And I think particularly with rescue chickens, you've always got a risk of not knowing what their life has been like before. I mean, we do know that our particular hay-hays, our chickens, did have a free-range farm that they were living on before they came here. But we don't know what might have happened in transit. We don't know whether she might have had something wrong with her before she arrived, or whether the transport itself and the change of circumstances caused an issue. So we went in to collect the eggs on Friday and discovered one of the chickens was in the corner of the coop inside. All the others were out, free ranging outside. She had gone into the corner of the run and kind of puffed herself up, which is a sign that they are not feeling very well. All her feathers that were puffed out, and she was kind of in the corner looking very sorry for herself. And we noticed it had happened. We checked on her, we couldn't see anything obvious. We checked her eyes. There was a little bit of an issue on the back end, which we were able to clean off, and nothing else looked particularly bad. But we did notice that she'd lost some condition compared to the others. If we felt the others and then felt her, she felt much smaller, much skinnier. So she'd clearly lost some condition and wasn't feeling happy. And we kept an eye on her for the next hour or so, and we noticed that she was also being quite hungry. So she wasn't showing a great deal of interest in food, but when we did put some corn out, the others were pecking at her and kind of bullying her away from the food. So it became very clear that she did need a bit of help, and so we went and did some
quick research just to, as I said, I had done lots of reading prior to getting the chickens, so I had half an idea of what we might need to do. But I went and did some more reading, used some trusted sources to just check what I was thinking was right. And effectively, we checked for signs of coxy, and it didn't appear to be that, without going into too much of the grim detail. Not all of the symptoms of coxy that would typically appear were there, but the difficulty is with hens being unwell is that pretty much anything they have all have the same symptoms. So it's very difficult to know what it might be. And one of the things it could have been, which we could immediately try and help her with if it was that, was that she could have been egg bound. So that is exactly as it sounds, that there was an egg stuck that she couldn't get out for one reason or another. And so we did, because the treatment for that is pretty much the same as the treatment for anything else that you might suspect them of having, which is to isolate them, keep them warm, give them food and water, and keep an eye on them. With the addition for a egg-bound hen of giving them a warm Epsom salt bath to try and relax their muscles, and to give them a bit of an abdomen massage. So we did all of those things. She came into the house. We ran her a nice warm bath in our bathroom, our ensuite, with lots of Epsom salts in. Gave her a nice warm Epsom salt bath, which she seemed to enjoy. She did perk up a little bit. I gave her an abdomen massage to try and help her, and then we gave her some food and water. So we drained the bath out, filled it with lots of blankets and towels to keep her warm and cozy, gave her some food and water, which she did eat and drink from, and then all we could do then was keep her on her for the next 24 hours. But she went to sleep that night and didn't wake up again the next morning. So by the next morning she had passed, and we had done everything we could to look after her. We had kept her as comfortable as we could, and we're not going to know what it was ultimately that was wrong with her. We're keeping a very close eye on the other hens, just in case it's anything that might spread. We've cleaned and disinfected their coop on the off chance. The likelihood is it's probably not something very serious, and it's just one of those things, because hens will die, and a bit like when we were talking about our guinea pig before, they're quite difficult to kind of diagnose and know that they're unwell, because they will hide it until such time as it's too late, because as all prey animals will, they don't like to show signs of distress or being unwell. So we lost a hey, very sad. We are relatively pragmatic about these things. Different people in the household have reacted differently and felt very differently about it, but it is something we've had to kind of accept as a what will be a working smallhold with a whole range of different livestock on it. As I say, you do need to be prepared. One of the grim realities is, if you have animals, the likelihood is, on occasion, that you will lose some. And being prepared, as I say, both emotionally but also practically, knowing what you're going to do when they do go, how you're going to deal with it, what you will and won't call vets out for in terms of what's worthwhile trying to get a vet out for, budget and all of those things. They're all very practical and also very personal. So we won't tell you the right thing to do there. You will have very personal feelings about whether your livestock are pets or whether they are there predominantly for food purposes or a mixture of both. But you will need to have in mind what you are going to do in those circumstances, so that when it does happen, like it happened to us, we were as prepared as we could be, did everything we could, and we think we did everything for the very best. We took as good a care of her as we could, and we've made sure that we've looked after the others as best we can and are keeping an eye on them. So there you go. Another of the harsh realities of smallholding life. But as you know from the start, we have promised to share the good, the bad, the ugly, warts and all with you. And so that has been our week. Right, time for me to get on with some nutrient harvesting to go over on our compost pile.
is our after shot, which has now actually weirdly left it looking pretty sparse and a bit sad. But there are some good news stories in here. So we have had some strawberries have made it through, even though we thought they'd all gone. Not many, a few along here and a couple along the back here, although they're not fruiting, they have survived. You can see little teeny tinies, this one trying to fruit. In even better news, the raspberries, which I was absolutely convinced were a goner, the majority are leafing. This, I can't remember which, look, this is the downside of liking to get your hands in the dirt. Just these 5 don't appear to have done anything at all, but everything else I think is at least leafing a tiny bit, and some of it even fruiting, although I'm not expecting to get tons of fruit off of these this year. In other good news, most of the fruit trees have taken and are looking fabulous. Even that one, although at the top it's not looking too happy, it is leafing, so there's hope for it. And that one there. We've just got one over here, this peach tree, which I'm pretty convinced is just a dead stick in the ground. The rhubarb, 2 are doing well, 1, 2 doing well. The third one looks like it's been got at by something or suffered with the transplant, so that one not doing so well. The loganberry coming along lovely, and possibly, no, I'm not sure that that's fruit. Loganberry coming along lovely, and then the final piece of the puzzle in here are the berries. So the red currant is that one. That's doing rather well. This one was the one that got absolutely, this is the josterberry that got hammered by caterpillars, which I had to pick off, but that's doing okay. The gooseberry is doing absolutely fantastically well. So we might even get a small harvest from that this year. I wouldn't expect to get a harvest from any of the fruit trees or bushes in here in their first year. I think we will from that. Less good news is the blueberries. So there's, look, tiny amounts of growth on 2 of them. I don't even know if you can see that one. But the third one in the background, which you won't be able to see because it is just a dead stick there doing nothing. So as always, a mixed picture in here, but that's exactly what we'd expect. You win some, you lose some. Overall, I'm really pleased, and I think next year, and it's always going to be the second year with fruit cage, that looks well. I think we're going to have a really fantastic harvest from here next year. Now weirdly, I know most people hate weeding, but I do genuinely, aside from the kidding myself that I'm not weeding, I'm harvesting nutrients, which we absolutely are. You can see them in the compost pile behind me here. So we've harvested lots of nutrients, but I also just quite enjoy getting my headphones on, listening to my audiobook and getting my head down and doing this as a job. It's something I really quite enjoy doing. So there's method in our madness, or enforced madness, of letting the weeds grow big, because it's quite a relaxing way to spend an afternoon, getting them all out, popping them on the compost. Right, that brings me to the point in the day where I need to go back to being a mum and doing some mum jobs. So, small holding things on hold. I'll try and get this uploaded tonight for you, but if not, it will be in the week. Thanks for joining me, and have a fantastic week. See you soon.